I certainly won't be the first to admit that Perfect Blue was a film that I was desperately trying to temper my expectations for on a first viewing. I often have a hard time immediately connecting with darker anime because the juxtaposition of the imagery with the usually over-exaggerated voice acting isn't something I normally jive with on an initial viewing, and God strike me down if you ever catch me watching a dub. But beyond that, Perfect Blue has had this sort of aura of devastation around it for as long as I've been aware, and couple that with the Aronofsky plagiarism allegations for Black Swan, which is a film I adore, I simply had no idea where on the spectrum I was going to fall with this. And as expected, I feel a lot differently than I anticipated feeling, as Perfect Blue consistently surprised me. What became clear to me pretty immediately was the film's exceptional ability to function and communicate information without the overt presence of dialogue. There's of course exposition that needs to be delivered, and the film is strategic about when it needs to take a moment to do so, but for the most part, the staggering animation and thoroughly unsettling score do a lot of the heavy lifting. You can tell pretty much immediately from the opening scenes who is on this girl's side and who isn't. But the true brilliance of it all lies in the fact that you have no idea where the story is going to go amidst all of it. For being only 82 minutes long, each second is used to maximum potential, and a commendably high amount of ground is covered in such a short amount of time. The film takes off pretty much immediately, and the further and further that Mima sinks into her psychosis, the more confusing it gets for us as an outsider. The thing that I found myself most impressed with in that regard was how seamless the integration was of the TV show she acts in the film. We're occasionally met with scenes that start off as if they're catching us up on something that happened in our character's life, as the timing seems to line up accurately, but just as we're about to be fully on board with it all, it will static itself out and be revealed to be a clip in that show. So even we as the audience are nowhere near tuned in to what is real and what isn't. And there's an extremely impressive lack of dramatic irony present in this film because of that seems to miraculously work amidst all of the chaos. There's a real paradox to the horror of this film that I found to be utterly fascinating. Mima is a character that is so desperate for her independence, not only as an artist, but as her own private person. Although the very job she so desperately wants to transition towards, as well as the one she's transferring out of, is an immediate one-way ticket to the death of her autonomy and self-identity. While this isn't necessarily a revolutionary idea, the ways that this further exacerbates her psychosis and descent into complete helplessness evokes a feeling of dread that is hard to find in pretty much any form of media. I have only seen the film one time, so this could likely be due to my efforts of trying to keep up with the whole thing, but there was never a moment where I found myself to be truly terrified like many people I know seem to feel. I mentioned the score earlier, and that was by far the most unnerving element of the film for me. It's incredibly sporadic, and combined with the pop star style of music our main character performs, it makes it even worse. But beyond that, there was not much that visually unsettled me beyond an initial sense of discomfort at some of the more graphic imagery. With all that said, I could definitely see that changing on a second watch now that I know what to expect, and none of my mentioning of that is to say the film did anything wrong. I just likely gave myself too specific of an expectation for what it was going to be. My only major gripe with the film was the final scene, actually. I think that the twist itself is wonderful, and it brings the thematics home in a way that I would only expect from a filmmaker as ingenious as Satoshi Kon, but the overly lighthearted presentation of the final moments didn't really do it for me. I'm guessing that the intent was to have that juxtaposition be a final punch in the gut, but that's not at all what it made me feel. This is something that I'm very interested to see not only where I land on another viewing, but where the general consensus seems to lie, because I haven't seen many people mention the ending before, so if you've got your own thoughts on it, leave them down below, because I'm really trying to contemplate on that further. I also find the Black Swan ripped this off narrative to be pretty close to baseless. There's definitely some inspiration drawn from it, like there is with any other project, but to insinuate that it's a blatant ripoff, like some people on certain subreddits seem to do, is doing a big disservice to both projects. I loved Perfect Blue. I also loved that I didn't understand Perfect Blue. I can tell that the fun of this film for me in the future is going to be obsessively searching for newfound meaning in places I didn't think to look previously, regardless if there even is anything there or not. While I suppose there are literal answers on paper to some of the bigger questions at play here, the seedier and darker, more unnerving elements leave so much more to be desired on a personal level. Believe it or not, this was actually my first Satoshi Kon film. I could have sworn I had seen something of his prior to this, but upon further investigation I realized I hadn't, and losing him so young was an utter tragedy, and I could very much see his films becoming favorites of mine down the line. The film's thematics and the methodology it uses to explore them is one of my favorite stylistic combinations ever, and whenever I see a film like this for the first time, the time that I like it the least is almost exclusively on that first viewing. And if that mentality is any indication of how I'll feel about Perfect Blue in the future, things are looking a lot brighter for me than for the characters in this film. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to day 2 of our October horror binge. I cannot wait to keep this going. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.